Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello, and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast. I'm going to forget how to introduce this thing because I haven't done it for weeks. This is episode 59, which we've just established, so that's good. I'm here with half of the usual guests. We're waiting on Paul, but he's not here, but we decided to get started anyway. So James, how are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well, thank you. Yeah, I've been a busy few weeks and looking forward to heading up to Lilleshall for the Strong First SFG this weekend with Fabio. So it'll be good to catch up with Fabio and Claire Booth again and see some old faces and some old friends and make some new ones. So looking forward. Yeah,
Fabio, who we had on last week. Yeah, so and we were just talking about this. James is a bit of can I say idiot? Silly boy. He's just done the snatch test today and he's got to do it again in 2 days' time. What's the point? What a silly boy. Why would you do that?
It shows that I'm getting better though. My hands are, no problems with hands, so they all feel good. So
good lad.
What the snatch test we just discussed, we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's nothing for our guest who's coming up in a minute.
Exactly. We know that. Right. So Paul's on his way in right now. So here he comes. But so as an intro, we've got someone. We're carrying on. We're blown away by the guests we get on here. We contact people and people just say yes, and it's brilliant. We absolutely love it. And this guy, I've been following him on Instagram for ages, and it just, I just love his profile. I've been watching him for ages, and I heard him on another podcast, and it sounded like, he's going to resonate with a lot of you guys out there, because he's just like all of us, except for he's taken being just normal to another level. So, he's a world champion in GS. We went through. I asked him what he was a world champion in beforehand, and he was an amateur world champion in 2015, I think. And then he said something about 2016, 2018, and then there was a world record and something else as well. So, I'll let him tell you that, because I was like, right, I'm never going to remember all that. So I tried writing it down. It didn't work. But anyway, and I haven't asked him how to pronounce his surname yet. So this is going to be interesting.
Go for it.
We have this week, Mr. David Keohan.
Yes.
Hey, there we go, Mr. David Keohan. So, hiya, David. How are you doing?
I'm keeping great, lads, and thanks very much for having me on.
No, thanks for coming on. David, I got in touch with David the other day, and he was like, "Yep, I can come on Tuesday," and it was like brilliant. Right, so there we go. So, David, let's we always try and get like a bit of an origin story. A lot of people who come on, kind of had like Dan John and stuff like that, and some people might know who they are, might not. But you kind of come from obscurity, I think. So,
yes.
Where did you begin? I mean, because you weren't always into fitness, right? So
no, 100%, lads, 100%. I started off from nothing really. I only got into fitness of any kind at the age of 32. So I'm kind of celebrating my 10 years of fitness this November. And before that, extremely unhealthy, very unwell, very unfit, and just very unhappy, in a bad place mentally and physically, I suppose like a lot of people in their 20s, you just start drinking and you go out with your mates and then you're eating shit food, and that's just the way it is. And you get away with it in your teens and your 20s, and then you kind of hit your early 30s and your body starts saying, "No, mate, you got to start doing something about this." I started getting like asthmatic attacks and acid reflux and high blood pressure and all this kind of stuff. And just ended up going to the doctor, and he said, "Look, you're going to have to start looking after yourself." So it kind of went from there then, I bought my first pair of trainers that day, and I started running. And as I said in previous podcasts, you might have heard, the first day I went running, I lasted 100 yards and to come home because I thought my lungs were going to fall out. I thought I had asthma. I didn't have asthma. I was really, really unfit. You know what I mean? And started from absolutely nothing. I mean, when I say I start from zero, I start from absolutely zero. Nothing, no fitness whatsoever. And then to have the 10 years that I've had has just been pretty incredible, to be honest with you, look back on it,
Can I just ask you, sorry, can I just ask you, David, we've had guests on in the past who've had, I suppose you could call it an epiphany or an awakening after having some kind of consultation with a doctor or something, and they're told, you've really got to change. But I speak to a lot of people, and I suppose you do, and I'd imagine Pete and Paul do as well, that have these warnings from like a doctor or something and said, look, you really got to change. And they kind of ignore those warnings or they don't do anything about it. But you said, you went to the doctor, he said something to you or she said something to you, and you went and bought a pair of trainers and you made a decision, right, I'm going to do something. What was it that, what was the spark for you? I mean, was it, what exactly did they say to you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of things. I mean, I was over in, my dad's big into football, and we went over to Manchester to watch a match, and there was guys coming down taking photographs. So we were in the pubs taking pics, and I just saw a picture of myself over there, and I was like, Jesus, you look terrible. You know what I mean? Big, fat, red face, high blood pressure, big, fat belly bursting out the buttons of my shirt, I looked at myself and was like, no, that's not right. You know what I mean? Not at the age you're at. And like, at that stage, I had 2 small kids. So, like, I'm 3 now, but at that stage, I had 2. So it was kind of like, you're going to have to start copping on to yourself a little bit now, kid, because, you're not a teenager anymore. You've got the warning from the doctor, and the doctor wants to put me on all this medication. The real thing for me was the doctor wanted to put me on to asthmatic inhalers, high blood pressure tablets, and a whole massive stuff for my stomach issues. And it was just from eating really bad and not doing any exercise. So I said, look, I'm 32. I don't want to be on all this medication for the rest of my life. I'm too early for that. So let's try and see if we get fit. Getting fit can help me. And that was the main spur for me. It was probably my kids and the fact that all this medication was going to be suddenly a part of my life that wasn't before. I didn't like that idea. So I said, look, how about if I just get fit and see will that help? And if it doesn't, then I'll take the medication. Thankfully, I haven't needed to take the medication yet anyway. So
sounds like we had this.
You're muted or something, Paul?
Yeah, sorry, it's my microphone. So
Gotcha.
I've got a really good intro into this today. Sorry about this, guys. I'm late, and then I talk and it doesn't even work.
Paul's here, everybody, by the way.
Paul's here.
To make a grand entrance or anything. But yeah, what I was saying was it's kind of a similar thing that happened to me, and we were pretty much the same age and about around the same time. I was doing the same things: stomach issues, bursting with my shirts, feeling like absolutely awful and rotten, being so unfit. So it sounds like you had a similar epiphany moment. So it was the photo that was the epiphany. What was the?
What's that? Sorry, you kind of went muted again there. Sorry, was that?
Was it the photo that was the
Pretty much. I think the photo was the main driver, because I looked at myself and was like, no, that doesn't look right. Not from any age, it was the photo really kind of was the start. A photo, and I think one guy said something to me in work as well, something in passing, and I was like, I don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I
so
remember where so similar story as well, but where I used to work would have to wear a shirt.
Yeah.
But you could wear jeans. It was kind of like an office, but you didn't have to wear a suit. And I just bought bigger shirts and didn't tuck them in. Yeah. And then I started to get like sweaty pits at 14 degrees and stuff like that. I was like, nah, this isn't right. I started to actually sweat, and I was like, nah, it's not a good way. And photos don't lie as well. This is why I'm not a massive kind of believer in posting before and after pics all over the place and everything like that. But for yourself, get a photograph and then work off that. And that's a great way to do it. And it obviously worked for you,
Definitely. And it was just like this random moment that just kind of kickstarted this 10 years of fitness, which is, I'm actually really
So what happened, David? So you got your running shoes, you went out for your first run, you did 100 yards or 100 meters and turned around and came home.
Defeated,
and then
badly defeated.
And then what happened from there? How did you go from that?
I was going up in the mornings, lads. Yeah, I was going up in the morning so no one would see me, because I didn't want to be like the fat guy running that everyone's going to point at. We could stay to him. So I used to go out in the mornings early, like about 5 or 6 in the morning. And I just kept going out. The first day I had to come home, like I said. The second day I walked to the top of the estate because it's up on a little incline. And I just jogged for about 2K. And that felt great. I was delighted. I got like 2K, and then the 2K kind of built up to finally I could jog the 2K. And I just built it up incrementally as I went along to 5. And like 5K was massive. It was like Everest. It was like I ran 5K. It took about 12 weeks. And I could feel myself getting better. I could feel myself getting fitter. my breathing was better. Like the asthma I was diagnosed with wasn't there. I was just really unfit. And I started losing a bit of weight. And then as that was happening, I started to kind of eat a bit better. And then you're in a nice little circle then, because you're training better and you're eating better. And then just gradually pushed that out then. And when I got to 10K after about maybe 2, 3, 4 months maybe, the very first marathon in my county in Waterford was being on the next summer. So this was around December. And in June, they said that the very first marathon in Waterford was being put on. And I was like, it was on the day of my birthday, and B, was the very first one being held. I was like, okay, this is a sign. So I signed up for that, and I trained really hard for those 6 months, and I finished that marathon. And that really kind of was a start into my fitness journey, and like my mental strength. I was kind of thinking, okay, you can finish a marathon. That's pretty difficult. You know, that's not something a lot of people do. So if you can finish the marathon, like what else can you do? And then it kind of went on from there then, you know. But I think finishing that marathon was the real tempering of the steel for me. You know, it was like, okay, now I can do this. Like, what else can I do? So then I started off on kettlebells, and that's a whole other conversation. But
so what was sorry.
Before we get into that, what did you hang on to? Like, as in, so you go to the doctor, they tell you, you need to sort yourself out, and like James said, a lot of people just go, well, okay, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah. I don't care. You obviously need something to hold on to, something to drive towards. So what did you have apart from just I want to be fit and healthy? What was your big reason to do it?
It was gradual. It wasn't one massive reason. It was like, as I was starting to get fitter, I was starting to feel so much better. It was like my body was starting to wake up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like, I was asleep for 20 odd years. Like, I was never into fitness. I never knew what being healthy felt like, you know. And as I was getting healthier, I was like, this feels great. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm feeling better. I'm getting better. And my times are getting better in the running. And then it was like having a plan, having a goal to head for, which was the marathon. Then it was having a goal to achieve. And that really drove me forward, you know, because goals are very, very important for me. I like to have something ahead of me that I can chase. And then when I hit that, I move on to something else. But I think the gradually feeling better and having the goal, they were the two main things I kind of clung on to, you know.
And did you give up everything, because you were saying you were drinking too much and eating rubbish food and all of that sort of stuff, and that's like similar to me. But I didn't give up drinking and I didn't give up eating rubbish food. I just did less of it. So people think you have to give up everything and cancel everything, don't they? But how did you manage that?
They think it has to be this massive lifestyle swing, you know, and immediate. You know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't. Because you were burning off so many calories in your long runs, like you had to eat anyway. So I was starting to eat maybe a bit healthier in my dinners. Like, I wasn't getting as much takeaways as I was, but I still get a takeaway the weekends. I'd still have a few beers on a Friday, maybe even a few on a Saturday. But it wasn't something I was doing during the week. Yeah. And it wasn't eating takeaways during the week, which we'd done a lot at the start, myself and my wife. But then it was like just cooking a little bit better food during the week, but still having your weekends, you know. And it didn't impact me that much, really, you know, because it was nice to have that little day that you could say, yeah, okay, maybe I earned this at the weekend and be good for the rest of the week, you know. And that's the way I've kept it going since. I still don't mind having a few drinks in the weekend and getting the odd takeaway, you know, no problem at all.
And what was it that you mentioned? You just kind of mentioned after the running and achieving the marathon, which you thought was, you know, for many people is very, very tough, and you did it. And then you thought, what else am I capable of? And you mentioned kettlebells there. What was the introduction into them? What made you aware of them? Was there someone around you that you saw? Was it something online? Was it someone you knew? What happened with that?
Again, it was a random meeting. There's a guy, I work in a shop in a builder supplier. So a guy came in just getting a bit of stuff. He was rebuilding his gym, and he had this little kettlebell logo on his t-shirt, and it was like a cool little logo. And I was asking him, just, you know, making conversation, what's that? He said, it's a kettlebell. I said, what's a kettlebell? And he said, come out and I'll show you. Because I literally, at the end of the marathon, I think my knee, I kind of got a bit of a pain in my knee, and I couldn't run for a few weeks. It was kind of like, I want to do something. So this just kind of fell in my lap. He was like, come out. Like, we'll do a few courses. I'm aware you have the pain in your knee. We'll adjust. And we started doing some kettlebell, some HIIT classes and some kettlebell classes. And I really enjoyed the two. I remember like swinging a 12 kg doing 12 kg for the first time, and I think my legs were sore for about 3 or 4 days afterwards. I thought my hamstrings were going to fucking getting upstairs. It was pretty difficult for a few days, but I really enjoyed the implement. I enjoyed what you could do with it, and he's a very good teacher, a friend of mine, Gan Power. So I just got into the kettlebell classes for about maybe 6 months, and then it was I saw the guys doing kettlebell sport, which was they had a separate class after that they were on kettlebell sport. It was like guys lifting 2 kettlebells for time, and I thought these guys were superhuman. You know, I thought, what in the name of God is this? You know, 2 guys lifting 224s they were lifting at the time, and they were going jerk sets, and it was like 10 or 12 RPM, minute on, minute off. I was like, fucking hell, that's incredible. You know what I mean? That's incredible. How are they doing that? You know? And I got fascinated with it then. I asked, could I join? They said, yeah, of course. So I started off with a couple of 16s and just doing some training with the lads. And I mean, like, you think 2 16s are light, but I mean, they immediately they crush you when you start to take it out for time. You know, when it's easy to pick up a pair of 16s and do a few exercises with them for like maybe a round of 30 seconds or 45 seconds, 60 seconds. When you start to bring that time out into 2, 3, 4, 5 minute sets even, you suddenly realize there's a hell of a lot in this. You know, there's a lot in this. There's a lot of technique involved in it. There's a lot of mental strength involved in it, physical strength and cardio. It's like, this thing has kind of got a lot going for it. So I got obsessed with it. I got hooked, absolutely hooked. Hook, line and sinker into kettlebell sports, the technicalities of it, the technique of it, and especially long cycle, which is my lift. And I just got hooked, and off I went from there. And then it was like I was talking about goals before. I set myself goals of what I wanted to do. So I said, look, the first goal was to get on the Irish team, and that really consumed me for about 2 years. And I got on the Irish team for the first time in 2014, and that was an amazing moment for me. Amazing.
So that's 2 years after you decided to get fit.
Yeah.
Not even picking up a kettlebell. 2 years after you decided to get fit, you got on the Irish team.
Yeah, I mean, it was pure obsession, lads. It was absolute obsession. It was all I thought about. It was all I talked about. I don't know how my wife stayed with me, to be honest with you. I was going to work and I was going straight to the gym, maybe 4 or 5 nights a week. And I was messaging everyone I could, like anybody high up in kettlebells, like all the Russian athletes, the likes of Stay Gordon over in England, guys at the time who were really big. I was just messaging them for technique tips, sending them on videos, asking everybody. Ask 10 people, like 4 people we might get back to you. You know what I mean? But I had no problem asking everyone. I just asked everybody I could. And every now and again, you might get a Russian who come back with a really good tip or something. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. And just like I said, got consumed by it. I think I needed that to get to that level. You know, you have to get kind of consumed by something, you know, to get down to it.
I enjoy kettlebell sport as well, but I tend to spend most of my time on the jerk and the snatch. And I understand how demanding it is. I mean, you've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I started doing it when I was 41, so still got a bit of time catch up with you. But it's very demanding metabolically and recovery based.
Yeah.
You know, so I know from my own training how much recovery time you need and how much training you need to do to get anywhere close to the 224s at any level of performance.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to perform with 216s. It's another thing when you jump up by.
Oh, it's massive. It's a massive.
Every 2 kilos feels like a totally different experience.
It's amazing.
How did you balance the recovery? Did your body start to break? Did you achieve the goal at the expense of your well-being? What happened?
Like I said, I was probably training 4 days a week. So I would always have pretty much a day off, 3 to 4 days a week, 4 days mostly, but I would always have a day off that I would do absolutely nothing. Well, I mean, absolutely nothing. We're still working. And I was also, at that time, I was playing music on the weekends. So, I mean, I was working 2 jobs and training 3 or 4 nights, 3 or 4 evenings a week. But what I concentrated more on than massive amounts of volume was I concentrated on technique more than anything. And it was that obsession with using the least amount of energy possible per rep and using the body as efficiently as possible, stacking your joints as efficiently as possible. So I wasn't just going, 12,000, 15,000 kg sessions. I was doing maybe lighter sessions, but really honing my craft, I suppose is what you'd call it, really honing the technique. And I think that's what kind of got me to the level that I got to over the last few years. It was that initial obsession with technique and getting that as tight as possible. You're not leaking energy. You're not wasting energy. You're not getting tired. You'll be able to switch off and relax muscles in certain positions, especially your legs, from when you're doing jerk or long cycle, you know. But I think it was the fact that I was training kind of smarter and not harder kind of got me to the level I got to, you know.
Yeah.
So just for our listeners and for me as well, in terms of the kettlebell sport, the competitions that you went into, you said that long cycle is your kind of lift. So that's like a double clean and then a double jerk and then a clean in between each jerk. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what would you do? Would you, and there's also obviously just the jerks and snatch. Is that the three kind of main lifts?
There's three main lifts in GS. You got your long cycle, which is clean jerk. And then you have your biathlon, which is 10 minutes of jerk, followed by 10 minutes of snatch, maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours later. But you only do the 10 minutes on long cycle because it's two movements, it's a compound movement. So, and it's so cardio, you know, the cardio was massive involved in it. So, I mean, 10 minutes is enough. Yeah. Usually,
so you either choose to do long cycle or the biathlon, which is the other two. Yeah. Okay. Exactly, cool.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Some people will just do one and they won't go near the other. And they say, how do you do that? You know, biathletes say to me, how do you do long cycle? It's so hard. And I'm saying the same thing. How do you do 10 minutes of just jerk? It's awful, you know? So I mean, there's a bit of banter goes on between the two sides as well, like, which is great.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, that is, because that goes on in everything, doesn't it? When like I'm like, how do people run a marathon? But then they're like, how do you lift what you lift, and how do you do that, and it's like it doesn't matter. If you're good at something, that's fine. You don't have to be good at everything, and that's what we're trying to get across on this. It's like just pick what you want and do that, and it's fantastic.
Pick what suits you. Exactly. Pick what suits you. Pick what you enjoy, then go for it.
So let's get into this quickly. You've just said 10 minutes is a long time, right? And you get knackered.
Yeah.
What's your world record?
The world record is 2 hours and 120.
Yeah.
120 minutes for 216s. Yeah, that's the.
Was that clean? Was that clean? That long cycle?
Yeah, long cycle, and then you pick them up at the start and you don't put them down. You know, they're on your body for 2 hours. Your rest position.
How many reps do you do in 2 hours?
I done 634 reps on broke. 634.
634.
Yeah.
That's just. Right, I'm off. See you later. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you put them down at the end of 2 hours?
Oh man, it was almost kind of spiritual, to be honest with you. And I was talking to people about this who've done ultra marathons and 100-mile races and stuff, and it felt like that. It felt like I actually can't believe it's over. You know, I can't believe I can actually put them down. It was just euphoria and tiredness, and it was amazing. It was. I have a picture of it. I had it for my profile pic for a long time. Just the face, like you've been through the gates of hell, and you've survived. You know, so it was awesome to say I done it, because no one has done it before.
Why? Well, no one's done it, obviously, because no one wants to do it, do they? This is one of those world records, isn't it? That'll stand for ages, because people are like, I'm not doing that. What would I want to do that for?
Everyone's just broken the pull-up record, haven't they?
Have they?
You know, David Goggins did some
Yes.
crazy number, and I think someone's just beaten his volume, actually. So, you know, you never know. Once the it's like
is that the pull-up record? Was that like it's the maximum number of pull-ups in like 24 hours, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that. I mean but that 2 hours of unbroken, not putting the weights down. You know, I think.
Well, the thing is, once someone's done it,
exactly,
it's possible, isn't it?
Because it's like a 4-minute mile or whatever, isn't it? It's like all these things. Yeah.
It's kind of my thing. I was like, I you know, my Eddie Hall 500, like I done something that no one else in the world has ever done, you know. And I know someone's going to beat it. And there's guys out there could nearly do that now. I mean, there's some top level athletes out there, many times better than them. And I know if they wanted to stand in one position and live for 2 hours straight, they could probably beat that by 300, maybe 400 reps if they wanted to. But there's not a lot of people who wants to do that.
Why was it? Why 2 hours as well, right? Because like, you know, you got a marathon, which is a distance, and you got half marathon and all of that, and you get kettlebell marathons, don't you, for like an hour? Is it an hour?
Yeah.
So why? What made 2 hours? Why not an hour and a half? Why not 2.5? Why not 3? Which would be ridiculous, you know. But like, just why like
Why the 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what it so happened as that I was doing kind of longer sets with kettlebells before it actually came into Ireland, or before it even became an actual event itself. 30 minutes double long cycle wasn't an event in the marathon circles, but I was doing double 22s for 30 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 years before that. So I'd like to think maybe I had some small way of getting it in to the official lifts, because people kind of said, like, you can't do that, you know what I mean? Or the body shouldn't be able to do that. But I was showing people like that, if you get your technique right and you get your mobility and your breathing right, and you get your flow going, you can pretty much lift as long as your mind keeps going, you know? So I done that 30 minutes with the 222s, and that got a lot of traction online. And I think after that, then maybe a couple of years, a couple of more people were trying longer sets with lighter bells, and then we got it in as an event, you know, so that was pretty cool. Sorry, I'm after forgetting the question. I rambled a lot.
No, that's all right.
Why
That's
2
all right.
hours? Sorry, yeah, the 2 hours. We were actually doing a fundraiser event for the marathon. That's where I was going with it, for the marathon lifters. Because I mean, all this stuff is all self-funded. You know, I mean, you could have an event on. I mean, I've traveled all the way over to Kazakhstan. You know, you could have an event on in Russia. You could have an event on anywhere in Europe. That's all self-funded. So they were doing a one bell 2 hour marathon fundraiser up in a shopping centre up in Portlaoise. And at that time, I was training for the IKMF 30-minute set representing Ireland. And I was doing longer sets anyway, 216s. Like I'd done up to an hour and it felt pretty comfortable. And then about 4 months out, they said, look, we're doing this 2 hour marathon for charity, for the Irish team. I was like, shit, I mean, I think I could do this with 2 bells, you know? And I approached them, and they were like, they all got really excited about it then, you know? Our rep, our country rep got really excited about it. He was like, geez, that's incredible. I don't think that's ever been done before. Got in contact with the president of the IKMF, Stefan over in France. He was like, oh, that's brilliant. Right, let's do this properly. We're going to get IKMF judges. We're going to have a team of judges do it for you. This is going to be a proper thing, down the history books. No one's ever done it before. It's like, oh shit, I better start training for it now. Suddenly I'm getting all really excited about it. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I better start going for it. So then because something that hasn't been done before, you have to kind of write a training program. It's like, there's no manual for this, you know. How do I do this? And I just had to make something up, and thank God it worked for me. You know what I mean?
You have to. Did you? I mean, did you ever go close to 2 hours in training, or did you just? You did.
I made the mistake of the same mistake of doing the actual lift a couple of weeks before, like you were doing with the snatch test. I done the full 2 hours 3 weeks before the event. Stupidly, I was feeling great on the day. I was meant to do a 90-minute lift. And I just went all the way to the 2 hours, and I done it. And I was like, mentally then for me, that was like, I have done it. You know, that's me finished with it now. I don't need to do this now. I don't need to do the official one. I've done it. It's online. People can see it. I know I did it. But it was just through the enthusiasm of Stefan saying, that's fantastic. You done it now. You know you can do it. I can't wait to see you do it officially. I was like, oh God, do I really have to do this again? Because that was really, really hard. And my hands were starting to, you know, all the skin had come off my hands just from sweat and chalk. And, you know, mentally trying to get myself back up again was difficult. I shouldn't have done it. You know, it's like you don't run a marathon before you run the marathon. You know what I mean? You might run 20 miles, maybe, but you don't run 26, you know? So I made a bit of a mistake there, but I'm glad it didn't do me wrong. I got back up to do it 3 weeks later officially.
When you did the unofficial 2 hours, how many reps did you get? Did you get more or less than the 634?
I think I got about 50 or 60 more.
Oh, you did more when you did it on your own?
More because there was no pressure. I was in the gym. It was just me. I got someone out to help me for the 2 hours, like just kind of give me water and, you know, maybe a bite of a banana, or kind of help me chalk my hands every now and again, like with the hands open. They just throw a bit of chalk in, you know, just to help you along. And I think I definitely done more. I definitely up on around the 700 mark. And like I said, because it was so soon after, and you just kind of mentally come down and then try and get yourself back up again to do this thing in front of people, and the nerves as well. You know what I mean? I was up in the middle of a shopping center, and like, you know, there was all this people milling in around you, and there was official judges there, and, you know, every rep had to be counted, and, like, you know, if you did so many like bad fixations, whatever, they would have disqualified you because it was an official event and you had to last the 2 hours. You couldn't put them down. So I think the combination of all that really brought the numbers down a little bit. But I was just,
like you say, you slowed down a little bit because you were like probably more on it for form and everything had to be perfect. So that was no, that's
exactly.
fantastic. And what happened with the so that was your world record attempt and world record, and then you've also won you've world champion in kettlebell sport amateurs as well, aren't you? So what can you explain what that was?
Yeah, that was again long cycle, but it was 224s this time. Again for this is the 10-minute event. This is what they call the traditional GS, traditional Uruguay sport. So that was a 10-minute, almost like a sprint set, for 10 minutes with 224s. And I think I got 78 reps to win the World Championships. The World Championship was in Ireland. So, I mean, you're breaking it down roughly 8 RPM, so at the 10 minutes, your technique has to be absolutely bang on, because what happened the year before that was I was in 2014, I was competing in the Worlds in Hamburg, and my cleans weren't great. I was kind of re-racking slightly every clean, losing about a second a rep. So if you lose a second every rep over 60 reps, that's a minute out of 10. You've just lost a full minute of lifting from just messing around. You know what I mean? So I cleaned that up. I spent a full 12 months working on my cleans. I came back and won the previous year. So that was a nice vindication. That technique, concentrating on technique really, really works.
Like you say, mentally, I suppose, even though it's a lot heavier, going from 2 hours to 10 minutes, So sorry, was the 2 hour event before?
The 2 hours was much later. The 2 hours was is 2018.
Oh, okay. So the 10.
I won the Worlds. I started off with traditional GS, the heavier weights. Yeah. I started off with that, and I won I won my Europeans in 2014, and I won the Worlds in 2015 with the amateur weights. I mean, amateur 224s is still difficult. You know what I mean? They call it amateur, but it's hard. It's a heavy enough weight, and even to do a few reps with it. When you're trying to do 10 minutes,
professionals is what, double 32s, is it?
Double 32s,
yeah.
That's almost a different sport. I nearly class that a different sport altogether. I did compete in professionals for 2 years as well. And stuff you get away with on 16s, you won't get away with on 24s. And stuff you get away with on 24s, you haven't got a hope on the 32s, because they are heavy. And any little mistake is magnified by 100, So your technique has to be pretty much flawless. Your mobility has to be very, very good. Your cardio has to be through the roof, and you have to be strong. You have to be strong as well, So it was a big jump up. And for me, like when I won the 24s, I won the Worlds. So I won national, Europeans, and Worlds at 24s. I was like, I don't have anywhere to go now with 24s sideways. For me, that's 24s done. Completed 24s finished, on to the next level. So when people were kind of saying, why did you just hang around 24s? You could have won a load of World Championships. I said, I won one. I don't want to be like a big fish in a small pond and rock up to a Worlds and know I can medal. You know what I mean? But with very little training. I think that's disrespectful. And I'm not the kind of person who likes to hang around and do that kind of stuff. I like to give myself a good challenge. So I went from 24s up to 28s for a year, and I got my CMS, my contender for Master of Sports, or candidate for Master of Sports, which was 60 reps of the 228s long cycle. And then I felt that I earned my stripes, that I could jump up to the 32s. So I got to the 32s then in 2016. And even to stand up for 10 minutes and lift 32s, just even to get to that 10 minutes, it's an amazing feeling, and you get a hell of a lot of respect for doing that. I remember being over in the Kazakhstan over in 2016, where the Worlds was, and met a lot of Russian lifters over there. And their main criteria was, you 10 minutes. And they didn't give a shit about your rep time, but they wanted you to finish the 10 minutes and not go up and just do 3 or 4 minutes and disrespect the bells. Go up and last your 10 minutes, So I'm really proud that I've done that for a couple of years, because it was tough.
God.
Where does that leave you now then? What are you?
So I set myself goals as at the very, very beginning. I things I wanted to do. So first was get on the Irish team. Then it was win an international championship on the 24s. Then it was get my CMS, get my Master of Sports, which I'd done, compete for 10 minutes on 32s, which I'd done, and then get a world record, which I'd done. So I'd done everything that I wanted to do with kettlebell sports, everything. And I retired out of it pretty much in 2019. Because I said, look, I've hit everything I wanted to do with it. And now I can come out and try and teach what I've learned to people. I've no more goals to prove to myself. The competitive edge had kind of got blunted, because when you hit all your goals, and they were lofty enough goals, you know what I mean? But when you hit all those goals, it's like, okay, now it's time to try something else. And now it's time to give something back to the sport. So doing like technique workshops with people and some coaching online, And that kind of stuff has been very, very rewarding after that, you know.
Mm. Mm. And you've spoke about, I mean, before we started recording, we started talking about the importance of mobility and stretching and things like that. Is that, and for many of our listeners, obviously the stuff that you've achieved is absolutely incredible. But for 99.9% of the population, that's not something that they're going to try and do themselves. But some of the stuff that you've spoke about is very obviously relatable to people, and also the mobility stuff. Do you want to explain kind of the importance of mobility and how you do that now?
Oh, I mean, definitely for our sport anyway, and mobility is crucial, and it's not been taught enough, I don't think, in relation to the sport, you know. So like when I went over and I saw the guys lifting 32s, and like I went over and I trained over in St. Petersburg, over in Russia. I went into the gym, the Eurofitness gym, and that's the home of kettlebell sport in the world. And I seen the guys, especially the young guys, just how flexible they were, you know, how incredibly mobile they were under the bells. They weren't these rigid, stiff guys and, you know, muscles firing all the time, lactic acid building up and building up. They were mobile enough that they could relax under the weight. And I was like, that's the key, you know, that's the key to lifting that kind of weight. You can't stand for 10 minutes and have your leg muscles firing all the time for 10 minutes. Even with 24s, it's extremely difficult, you know, and you just can't do it any way heavier than that. So I was looking at all these guys and I was like, that's what's being taught. So I went off and I started really working on my mobility. At that stage, I was pretty mobile anyway. And luckily, I suppose natural enough I am. But when I concentrated on my mobility a bit more, through like, I suppose the likes of yoga and through like joint mobility work, you know, working on my range of motion through my joints and some weight and mobility work. And when I started doing that, lifting felt easier. Like it started feeling like I took the handbrake off my lift, you know, because I could relax my legs in overhead position and in rack position. So like say if you're doing a rep every 10 seconds and you can relax your legs for 4 out of them seconds, you know what I mean? That's half your lift. That's like 4 minutes out of 10 that your legs are totally switched off and relaxed. I said, why isn't anybody teaching this? This makes a lot of sense. You know, instead of just going balls out for 6 or 7 minutes and then dying because your legs just won't move anymore because they're just incredibly tense and full of lactic. It's like suddenly like you're getting a little switch off every single time. So it's just on, off, and you can just keep lifting. And I wrote a little kind of program for myself, a little mobility program. Again, just trying stuff out. And it started working. People kind of started getting interested in, hey, Dave, what are you doing? Your lifting's getting better. You're looking better under the bells. What are you doing? You got a Russian coach or something? No, I'm concentrating on my mobility work. I said, what do you mean? Well, I said, this is what I'm doing. And I send them off a few videos and stuff. And then they come back to me in a few weeks, months time and say, hey, I'm starting to feel really good. This is starting to work. And would you think of maybe you're releasing this as a book? I was like, no, look, I don't have any, you know, I don't have any accreditation behind me to do that. I was like, I'm just a concerned lifter who really enjoys his sport and who's found something that works. They were like, look, I've tried it, he's tried it, she's tried it, everyone in the gym has tried it. And they're really finding the benefits of it. Would you just write it out? So just wrote out what I was doing. It was just some basic stretches, really, you know. I was looking at the likes of Dennis Vasilev and these guys online, Sergey Rudnev, and I'm kind of looking at what they were doing and kind of doing that and kind of put my own spin on it and stuff. And suddenly I had a little PDF book and I sent that out online and it got massive traction in the kettlebell world. And all of a sudden people are saying, that's great, we want you over to teach a workshop. I was like, okay, you know, this is going to stay way outside of my comfort zone here, but because I was like, oh, I was a shy guy in school, you know, you mightn't get it off me now, but I didn't really like to talk. But I just done it. I done my first workshop and I thought I was going to get sick with the nerves. But I went over and I knew I had something to give back with the technique, definitely with efficiency of technique, and I call it least mode, using the least amount of energy possible per rep instead of beast mode. And then I was showing them some mobility work, and it got some great reviews. And I've traveled before COVID, like I traveled all over the world with it. I'm teaching national teams and teaching people like that. So that was amazing, you know. And it's great to kind of see the mobility getting a bit more respect now in our sport. And it's helping people, and that's all I wanted to do because sport gave me so much. I wanted to get something back.
Well, it's pretty much in any sport, isn't it? But also, like just in general for our kind of listeners, for you guys, it's kind of like, you know, that's the thing people neglect and they leave till the end, and it's actually the thing that feeds forward. Because I can't remember who it might have been. Paul McElroy who described it. It's you're not doing 10 minutes of like a 10-minute set. Of 60 odd reps or 70 reps, you're doing 70 sets of one.
Yeah.
It's like 1 rep and then rest,
Exactly.
and then 1 rep,
rest.
and then rest, and then 1 rep, and then rest. So you're actually, it's 10 minutes, but like you say, you could be resting for 4 minutes of that.
That's what got me the win in the Worlds. I know it did, because I mean, I was up against a guy who was a better athlete than me. He was stronger than me, but he didn't have the mobility. He was ahead of me the whole way up to about minute 8, and then he started to die because his legs were gone. And I just sailed past him and won by a couple of reps, you know. And it was like,
so go on.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I was going to say, isn't reality that a lot of people, they go into fitness programs and they're burning calories, they're exercising, they're you know, hopefully eating into their fat reserves, etc. I mean, I spoke to a client. I said, look, you know, long term, after a while, you spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about smaller things to give you an edge. You know, I spent probably about 3 months trying to get the hand position in the kettlebell snatch that wouldn't tear my hands up.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, well, once you start getting into that mindset where you're trying to better yourself rather than just burn calories and energy, you're thinking about what's going to give me that marginal gain. For me, it was the fact that I've got quite bad eczema on one hand. And if I didn't have good hand position, then I would just come out of even a short set with totally beaten up hands. It would be impossible for me to train for a week without having crazy amounts of tape. And so I had to spend a lot of time. Now I don't get any problems, but it's those kind of things you've got to be prepared to do, which obviously you are across multiple different areas of your sport. So, you know, you're probably thinking, what is my technique in the actual lift? But what is my joint health like? What is my hip extension like? What is my shoulder extension like? What is my scapular mobility like? And all these things take time, don't they?
Exactly. And like, I was always kind of fascinated with the minutiae of the sport and how to improve, you know. And like once I started working on, like I said, my thoracic and my scapular mobility, my overhead got 10 times better. I got a hell of a lot more relaxed. The joint, you know, the shoulders just came down to the socket. I wasn't pushing through the bells anymore, wasting energy. I could just sit back down into it, you know. Things were switching off. I worked on my hip mobility a lot because my hips weren't ever great. And then all of a sudden, like I said, you can relax your quads. I mean, and everything you're doing in kettlebell sport, especially with the jerk portion of the set, is coming through the quads. So, like you were saying, it's 10 minutes of 1 rep, you know, 70 times by 1 rep. So like, then you can just relax your legs for like I said, up to 4 minutes out of that 10. You know, and these little things, the small things like that, make a massive difference. Because a lot of people just want to grab the bells. They get obsessed by numbers. Like, I have to get 65 reps to get my rank 1. I have to get X amount of reps to get master of sports. And they don't think of it, okay, I actually need to work on my weaknesses at first and kind of make that base really wide and then peak towards the top, you know. But people just kind of just want to go. But once you get that nice wide base of mobility and strength and cardiovascular fitness, then you can start bringing that up towards the top, you know.
Otherwise, you're dipping into your mental toughness constantly in the training, because it's the kind of sport where you are kind of suffering when you're at that elite level. It's a different kind of suffering. It's suffering you probably condition yourself to suffer, to endure. But there's no need doing it too early.
No,
you know.
No. I mean, and that's why a lot of people burn out. That's why you don't see a lot of men actually doing, especially men in the West, do kettlebell sport or for any long period of time. You know, I suppose me doing it maybe 8 years, and that was pretty long for someone over here, because people just, like you said, they get mentally burned out by the training because it's so damn difficult when you haven't got the mobility to get into the positions correct. You know what I mean? You're actually like you're training with chains on, you're training with the shackles on. You know, you're not training the right things. And like I said, it's mentally very, very hard to keep beating yourself up 3-4 nights a week, every week. You just kind of get, I'm fed up with this, or I'll take up chess or something. You know what I mean?
It's
So
quite incredible, really, to think that you, from where we started this conversation, that you were 32 years old and you were, you know, overweight and high blood pressure and, you know, asthmatic or respiratory issues, you know, not motivated towards anything physical. And then you kind of somehow, you know, just picked up a pair of running shoes after a meeting with the doctor and started running, and then went on to do everything that you've done. I mean, it's when you reflect back and see, you know, how far you've come in, you know, in 10 years. I mean, your life could have been very, very different if you hadn't have picked up that pair of trainers that day, couldn't it?
I mean, it literally, like, it's the second bite of the apple for me, you know. I got a second shot at life. That's the way I call it, you know. It's been incredible. I haven't really sat down and thought about it too much, but when you kind of bring it up like that, it's like, yeah, considering where I was 10 years ago, you put 100 guys in a row, I was probably the unfittest or in the bottom 3 of those guys. And now you can say you're a world champion in sports, and I got to travel, not only travel, but coach athletes. Got to Australia, got to coach the guys over there. And yeah, it's been an insane 10 years. It really has. And not just with that, but with my adventure there the last weekend doing the stone lifting as well. And
yeah, let's get into that. I think James said something earlier about 99% of people, when we're talking about kettlebell sport and all that, 99% of people won't do that, but most people are capable of it. You've proved that, right? People are capable of it, and you found your own way in it as well. It's not like you went somewhere and went, right, make me a champion. You were like, right, that's what I'm going to do. How do I do that? And you went and found your own way, which is fantastic.
Yeah, which is awesome,
But yeah, so you've just mentioned what you were doing last week or whenever it was, the week before, and like I say, I saw it on Instagram, and I thought you spent a week going around Scotland picking things up, but you did it all in 12 hours, you said. This is your, well, it's not a new thing, is it? Because it's an ancient thing, but you've got into this, haven't you? So what how did you get into this stone lifting?
Stone lifting then, yeah. I mean, COVID, lads. COVID struck pretty hard over here. And I know it struck hard everywhere, but I mean, we took it very seriously in Ireland. So everything shut down and stayed shut down for a long, long time. Gyms were closed. I had no access to the kettlebells that I was using, or any of the equipment that I was using. I had no access to anything. I had a couple of kettlebells at home in the shed, but I was kind of at a loss because, like I said, I'd hit that plateau. I've done everything I wanted to do. Now where do I go? I was kind of humming and on, and then COVID hit. It's what do I do now? I've no competitions I want to do online. That just didn't interest me. For me, competitions now are just meeting my mates, you know what I mean, and having a bit of crack with them and going up and trying hard. So what I had was at the back, I met my wife in art college. She had this beautiful carved piece of Portland stone sitting up in a pedestal out in the back garden. So I was so I picked that up and I was like, that's a nice weight, I weighed it. It was about 61 kilos. It's that's a decent weight. I can do a lot with this. So I started picking that up and, up the chest and doing squats with it and stuff. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm enjoying this. And I'd done a couple of months of that. And then I just started getting really into it. I was like, suddenly friends were phoning me and hey, Dave, I'm after digging up a wall, or I'm after digging up the ground at the back to find a nice boulder. Yeah, drop it into the house. So the back garden is full of boulders now. But because I had no access to any other equipment, that was it. I just had stones and a couple of kettlebells. But I said, I really enjoy being fit and I really enjoy being healthy. So what can I use? Use your imagination. What's out there? Rocks. There's fucking rocks everywhere. The world is made of. Pick them up. You know what I mean?
The thing is, I have to justify. My wife is very understanding. I still justify to a degree the amount of equipment that's in the house, whether or not it's necessary to be in the house. How do you justify boulders being in the garden? I don't know how she puts up with me, lads, to be honest with you. The back garden is in shit. There's fucking holes everywhere. It's full of mud. I'm looking out at it now. There's stones all over the back garden. Look, she knows me at this stage. We're together since we're 18. She's like, oh, look, boy, just go on. If it keeps you happy, you're cracked.
Yeah, is it one of those things, if you've got to get rid of all those stones, you'd just be sitting there like...
I know, and they can't take away my friends. I made friends with you. I've named now and everything, and Wade and the whole lot.
What you need to get into next is smashing them up with a hammer.
Oh, no, I couldn't do that. No.
You couldn't. I think it's named.
I think it'd be easier to pick up though, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. So I got into that, and then got down to the beach. Then where I used to live on the Copper Coast, and beaches are strewn full of rocks. And I picked up a couple over there. Found a couple that were kind of a nice weight, and started training with them. And then when I really got into that was the Stoneland documentary made by Rogue. I don't know if you've watched that.
Yeah, was that kind of like, it's sort of German or Russian or something, wasn't it? The kind of the village games and things that they did. Was that right?
It was the Scotland Stones of Strength, and they were talking about Don Martini and the Scottish Stones, and they done one in the Basque Country as well.
That's it. That's the one I've seen. The Basque Country. Yeah.
And they done one in Iceland. But I watched that, and because I was lifting with these stones, I thought this might be interesting, and it was fascinating for me. Like suddenly you have these stones that have been lifted for hundreds, if not thousands of years, sitting in fields in Scotland, just waiting to be lifted. They were clan testing stones to be a warrior, the, you know, the fee floor or whatever, and they're still there, you know. And the one that really caught my imagination was the Fianna stone, because I was brought up in Ireland on stories of Fionn McCool and the Fianna, you know, and all this Irish mythology, the Fenian cycle. And all of a sudden I found, like, there's a Fianna stone in Scotland, in Glenlyon. I was like, yeah, that was used as a Fianna testing stone, to be a Fianna warrior. I was like, that's like mythology and legend and history and reality all kind of coming together. Oh, fuck, I said, I have to go over and see that, you know. So then I started really getting into the stone training 3 or 4 days a week. And I got to reading about all these other stones, about like all these different clans. That was their test. To become a man, you had to lift this stone, the chest height, and put it back down again. And got in contact with like Jamie Gorry and Martin Jansitz over there, who are massively into finding old stones that have been lost through history. They found about 35 over there now, scattered all through Scotland. And got in contact with these guys, like that, like I did with the kettlebells. Just get in contact with people. I mean, the world is great like that. Social media is great that way. Just message them. And like, they're so into it. They're delighted someone else is into it, you know. So I said, look, I'm going to be coming over to Scotland at the end of September. Jamie said, I'll meet you. I'll take you around the tour of the Southern Highlands. And we lift about 11, 12 stones. I was like, in one day? Okay. Okay. So I had to, like, I get my training stepped up. And then I met Martin then up the Northern Highlands. And like, we done, like I said, 14 testing stones in about 24 hours. And it was absolutely awesome. I mean, like, you're in touch, you're physically in touch with history. You know what I mean? It's like, how many people have picked that up over the last 800 to 1,000 years? How many warriors, how many lives have been and gone? You know, it just fascinated that you were actually in touch with history, you know, and you can say now you're now a part of that by lifting it. So it really got a hold of me, and I'm going to go back and do some more, because I absolutely just fell in love with that aspect of it.
Well, the beauty of them as well is you don't need any security or anything. You just leave them lying there because nobody can pick them up and run away with them.
You'd be doing well. You'd be doing well. You know, there's a great way. I mean, the lightest one is about 97 kilos that I lifted. The heaviest one that I broke the ground with was 163. I just couldn't pick that up. It was just too heavy. But I'll get there eventually. But the heaviest one I got to chest was the Fianna, which was 127 kilos. So, and there's a massive difference in picking up a rock than there is in picking up a deadlift, like a barbell. I mean, I could pick that up with one hand in a barbell, but it's like, you have to get down lower. I mean, it's not calibrated. It's on the ground. I mean, a rock is quite happy where it is. You know what I mean? It doesn't want to be lifted. Like barbells are meant to be. They're calibrated and stuff. And you have to have a certain level of mobility to be able to get down to the ground level while maintaining a nice straight back as well, you know? So there's a lot goes into a stone lift as opposed to like a straight deadlift. And that's the main different thing I could tell people about that is, like, when you're watching the Arnold games, like, those guys are pulling over 400 kilos on a deadlift. But I mean, the stone they use is 166. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's a massive difference from 166 kilos to fucking 400, maybe 450 kilos. Just shows how difficult it is to pick them things up, like.
I think most people listening to this will know because they'll have laid a patio or something in their lives, and that's hard enough. So and that's not even heavy.
But again, what I wanted to show people was, like, and I've had a great run the last 10 years, like through running, through kettlebells. I've done a lot of gymnastic rings work. I've done the GMB rings 1 and 2, a lot of stuff with maces and now the stones. Is that if you work on a nice wide base, your mobility, your cardio, your strength, you can peak towards anything you want to, you know what I mean? Once the base is there, you can kind of express yourself artistically through many different forms, you know? But it's just build your base wide first, work on your joint mobility, work on your strength, work on your bit of running. And then you can just go towards whatever kind of takes your fancy, you know? And I've had like 4 or 5 different avenues over the last 10 years. And I've had a pretty good run at all of them, you know? So I just want to say to anybody who's listening, because I started from nothing. I started with zero fitness, no health, and normal guy, normal job, like mortgage, 3 kids, just your normal average lad. But once I concentrated on just those things, I've had a great run since, you know. So
that's brilliant, because I think like that as well these days. Because, like, you know, you want to be good at one thing, so you pick that. But then actually, like you say, most especially like most athletic stuff, like lifting or running or this, that, and whatever, you build a base of strength first, and then, like you say, you can just go anywhere. So you can become good at body weight, you can become good at lifting stuff, you can become good with a barbell, with kettlebells, with stones, with anything, like, you know. or you can then become an endurance athlete if you want and go running instead, if you trim down a bit or whatever and all that. So
Exactly.
it's I suppose it's the mentality is that you've built over the 10 years. I was about to say, you seem to be the type of guy who gets like obsessed with stuff, shall we say?
I get kind of tracked, and I get obsessed with technique, and I get obsessed with the minutiae of it, and then I hit a level, I hit something that I wanted to hit, and then I'm quite happy to move past that. And a lot of people then who you're friends with online are like, when are you going to go back to kettlebells? Because that's their thing, and they haven't moved outside of that, and that's fine. If that's your thing. But I mean, I like to, because I've got this second bite at the apple, I like to just try a few different things and push myself mentally and physically, to achieve those goals. And then once I'm quite happy then to move on from that and do something else.
I think the other lesson.
Oh, sorry.
So I was going to say, I think the other lesson is, you can't just say, I want to do that. And I want to do that. And I want to do that. James talks about this a lot. He says you can do anything you like, but you can't do everything. So pick something and get good at that. And I think about this, the amount of programs I've been on over, because I've been doing this, about 10 years. So the amount of, because you think like, well, no, because I need to get good at something, I've got to spend a lot of time on it. You spend a year, 18 months, you're going to get pretty good at something. And then you can move on to another thing and you won't lose being good at that. If it's all to do with health and fitness and what have you, you're not going to lose being good at the kettlebells. You might go back and you might not be where you were, but you'll be able to pick up from a completely different
a pretty good base. That's it. Because I mean, you have your techniques are kind of muscle memory into you, So then if I wanted to segue back to kettlebells, maybe in the future, I know I have all that strength and mobility working and technique work in your back,
You might even get better at it as well, because you've got the benefit of other stuff that might, all of a sudden, you never know.
There's always carryover.
People might be stone lifting to train for kettlebells because you found out that it's the best thing you can do. Like, who knows?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anyone is as mad as me. I hope there's a few out there anyway.
Did you have any obsessions before you got fit?
I wouldn't say obsessions. Play a lot of guitar, and I suppose playing in bands kind of and done that for me, because you're always trying to learn something new, and I get no problem sitting down at night for a few hours and just kind of going over stuff on the guitar and learning songs and stuff. So I mean, I wouldn't call it obsession per se. I just get really involved. I think obsession sounds a little bit unhealthy. I just get really involved in something and I just give it my full attention. So it was art and music before that mainly, and like I still dip back into that, not as much, because it's time of the day, really. You're people working, kids and all that. I just have enough time for training in the evenings. But yeah, I focus on something, and I get pretty tunnel visioned about it. Definitely.
It's been absolutely brilliant speaking to you, David. And I know this was arranged, like Pete said at the start, in quite short notice. But I mean, it's I've been following you myself for a little bit, and obviously since we knew we were going to be speaking to you, been really looking at your stuff, and it's I mean, how do people find out more about you and see? Because I know you've put some great videos on of some of this stone lifting and things recently that I've been seeing. What's the best way for people to follow you and what you do?
If anybody wants to message me, I have no problem talking to anybody about health and fitness. If they want to, anyone in the kettlebell world wants to work on technique or anything, give me a shout. I'm very giving my time that way. I don't mind saying. So we can follow me on Instagram. I'm down as Irish Move Athlete, and you'll see me there with a pair of 32s. And I'm just down to my name, David Keohan, that's Keohan on Facebook. So look, anybody wants any help with anything, hit me up. I definitely help you out as much as I possibly can. And lads, thank you so much for having me on. I'm always kind of humbled and honoured when I get asked onto anything like this, because I always kind of think myself as just your normal Joe. So, you know what I mean? So it's very much appreciated. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings for 60 minutes.
No, it's been absolutely great. Pete, do you have anything you want to kind of say at the end, or any?
Not really. I'm just to say thank you to David for coming on. Like I say, I think this will really resonate, because it's a thing that shows anybody can do it. Like you get people on who've been in the industry since the 60s and 70s and what have you, and it's like, okay, brilliant. You've been doing it your whole life. You teach this stuff, it's different for you, but you prove that it's not. Yeah. So, and people think, you know, the thing, you can think it's too late. You started when you were 32. It doesn't matter if you're 32, 42, 52, whatever. It's better to start now. Imagine what you can do in the next 10 years, you know, to kind of undo what you've done in the last 30, 40 years. So like, it's just a great message and I love it. So I encourage anyone, even if they don't want to get in touch with you or whatever, just to follow you on Instagram, because it's
Awesome.
It's entertaining because it's lots of different stuff and loads of mobility, and you do it all in your garden and in your kitchen and on the beach and all that. And it's like, I absolutely love that, because it just shows you know, like people are like, how I haven't got access to all this. And it's like, well, you have, because you've got a kitchen, you know.
You have a body, haven't you? All you need is your imagination after that. You know what I mean? So like, it's all about just putting your mind to something.
Absolutely.
You don't need a lot of expensive equipment. You don't need all that kind of stuff, but you just need to a willpower. You can do it. Honest to God, if I can say I can do it, and believe me, from where I came from, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Cool. And Paul, do you have anything? Any final thoughts? Anything?
I'm probably going to have to hit you up on some technique tips, really.
No problem. I'd love to.
I've got a dodgy QL, which I believe is holding me back on my snatch. And my fixation needs a lot of work.
Send me on anything at all, man. I will gladly help in any way I possibly can.
Yeah.
What we should do is at the end of each podcast, instead, is say, Paul, can you give us a list of your ailments, please?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
A nice little Jerry Springer roundup. Now we're just going to have a list.
If anyone knows a child catcher, that could solve one element.
Right. Okay,
So,
guys.
lads.
I think, right. So just want to say thank you very much, guys, for listening. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, join the Facebook group, Health Oddity. If you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please do so. And we will see you all next week. Take care. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.